Hello and welcome to Mountain Patriot Homestead. Today's recipe is going to be made purely on the spur of the moment because what I was planning on preparing for lunch, I realized I was lacking one very important ingredient. Let's see how I'm going to figure this one out. Today I had some leftover chili. Yes, when I fix a pot of chili, I make pretty much when I fix a pot of anything, I make enough for us and Napoleon's army. So I always have a bunch of leftovers, and with this pot of chili, there was no exception to that. So I decided I was going to just prepare us a simple, easy lunch of Frito pie. And yes, I know I used a brand name, but corn chip pie just really doesn't make any sense to most of us that grew up eating them. But I know some people call them walking tacos or whatever you call them. It's a very simple meal made of corn chips, chili, cheese, whatever other toppings you want on it. And the thing I was lacking today was the corn chips, and I'm not going to drive all the way to town to go just get a bag of corn chips, so I decided I was going to try my hand at making them. Now, I've made potato chips. My daddy used to make wonderful potato chips. I've made potato chips in the past because, again, if I've got potatoes, why drive to town to get something I can just make? Well, I decided I was going to try my hand at corn chips, but I've never made them before. I've made tortilla chips just using corn tortillas and, cutting them up, frying them, and there you go. Never had made corn chips. But today I'm going to try to change that. But I noticed one other issue with that. And that is I do not have any masa harina, which is a type of corn flour that you use to make like corn tortillas. Didn't have any of that. However, what I did have, or what I do have, I guess, is masa azul. And I'm sorry if I mispronounce any of that. Spanish is not, I can pronounce mostly menu items, and I can ask how to go to the bathroom in Spanish, and that's pretty much the limit of my Spanish. So I'm sorry if I mispronounce it, but what I'm trying to say is I didn't have the yellow corn flour that most of your corn chips are going to be, that yellow color that we're familiar with. All I had was blue. And I've made the blue cornbread in the past, and I know that does not turn out that appetizing looking. However, that's all I've got, so that's what I'm going to use. And we're going to be learning together because, I've never done this before. So let's get started. To my bowl, I'm just going to add 1 cup of the corn flour. Now this is that blue corn flour, and a teaspoon of salt. Just stir this up a little bit. This is not completely necessary because you're going to stir it up anyway, but I just like to do this. And I'll just make a little well in the center of it. And to that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now you could use avocado oil, you could use vegetable oil, whatever oil you have nearby. I'm just using olive oil. And stir that together just a little. Again, not necessary because I'm fixing to add 3/4 cup of hot water, and then it all gets stirred together. Now I've got this stirred up, but it looks a little not good to me, but let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to, it said use parchment paper, but I'm using what I've got. I've got wax paper on hand right now, so just putting one down on the bottom and an extra to go over the top. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more of that corn flour down and going to put this dough right here in the center. It just seems a little thin to me. It doesn't seem like it's thick enough, but well, yeah, it may be perfect if I were using the other, the yellow corn flour. It might be fine, but maybe this blue is just, I don't know, maybe it just soaks up liquid differently, but we'll see. I'm going to roll this out, and of course I'm thinking the thinner that you roll it, maybe the crispier your chips are going to be, kind of like when you're making potato chips. If you slice your potatoes real thin, it gets a crispier chip. But let's just see here. I'm going to roll this out as rectangular as I can. Again, this feels awful soft to me, but maybe this is going to work out. I don't know. This is an experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment in your kitchen. It's okay. That's how a lot of dishes, probably most of our foods came about, was just people experimenting with what they had. So that is what I am doing here. It feels, I don't know, the texture is, like I said, it feels awful thin to me. And I'm just gonna kind of rub this out, smooth it out a little bit, try to make it a little bit more even, because I'm going to get ready to cut it. Just going to pull that top layer of wax paper off. I mean, it looks okay. So let's see if I can get it cut. I'm going to use my pizza cutter, because it is so great for cutting things like noodles. I use my pizza cutter a whole lot more for things other than pizza than I ever have thought about using it for pizza. So if you have one in your kitchen, don't forget that that's a good tool for doing a lot of cutting. So I'm just cutting these about maybe 1/2 inch wide, just in long strips. I don't know. This just seems awful gooey, I guess. It doesn't feel like the right texture, but I'm just gonna keep going. The real trick is going to be how easy it comes up off the paper and holds together. I don't know. But I'm going to cut all of it about 1/2 inch wide, and then when I come back and cut them crossways, I'm going to cut them about the length of a corn chip, which is, what, 1.5 inches, maybe, long. We're just eyeballing this. It's not like it's a exact science or anything, so I'll just come back across and cut them long ways, just to see if we can get corn chip shaped corn chips. Yeah, I don't know. That's just something about it. It's telling me I'm going to be fixing this in short order, but let me see how this is going to go, and I'll see if I can get them up off of this wax paper. Okay, no, that stuck like muck, and so I've come back in here and added a little bit more corn flour to it until I got it more to a consistency that feels right. It's just thicker, you see it's hanging together there, and that just feels right. So I've switched out the wax paper. I put it out on one of my little silicone sheets, and I'm just re-rolling it because, yeah, it stuck to that paper like nobody's business, and it just was not going to cooperate. So here we go. I'm just like I said, just added a little bit more corn flour to it, remixed it, and so I'm going to re-roll it and recut it. And again, this is how you experiment in the kitchen, and don't be afraid. And if it doesn't turn out 100% right, you move on and you try it again, because guarantee you, who first made a corn chip, theirs didn't turn out 100% right. And here I'm just using my little offset spatula because that's what I had by my hand. So I'm just using this, going to recut it and do this again. I've got a couple of inches of hot oil in my cast iron skillet, and I've put the first batch in there. I didn't want to put just a whole lot in at one time, but once those are done, just you take them out, drain them. I'll just put some salt on them, but if you wanted to use seasoning salt, you could do that. And then you just add another batch in, and you just keep doing that until all of them are done. And it doesn't take a lot to figure out when they're ready, because the oil will actually quit bubbling and frying. And so if they were the yellow corn flour, I think it would be a whole lot easier to tell. But you know, you just ease them off into that oil and see how they want to clump up, but just stir them just a hair and they will float apart, and they'll do their thing, and just stir them occasionally just to flip them. But again, it doesn't take more than a minute or two, and these are done. Okay, as we went along, you know, I had to adapt. The original recipe was too thin. It was sticking to everything, so I had to add some more. If I were using the actual masa harina that it called for, it may have went perfectly by the recipe, but using what I used, it did not, so I had to add more of the blue corn flour to it to get it stiff enough to hold up. However, I think that they turned out rather well. The hardest part of this recipe, once I tasted one, was not eating them all before I got them done, because they really taste good. Do they taste exactly like the store-bought ones? No, they actually have a more sweet, nutty flavor, and I think that's because of the type of corn flour. That blue corn flour is sweeter and has a kind of a nutty flavor. So if you use the yellow, I think you may get closer to the store-bought. So just a tip there. But again, these do not look pretty because they look burnt, but they're not. They're blue, supposedly blue. But after they're cooked, they're blue. So let me just show you one up close. Yes, does not look like store-bought at all, but that's because I didn't have the right kind of flour, the right kind of corn flour. But I'm telling you, once you get to eating on these, it's kind of like that chip commercial about you can't eat just one. Well, listen to the crunch on this, and I'm sorry for crunching in your ear, but listen to the crunch on this. You hear that? They're really good. Anyway, that was my first try at making homemade corn chips. Next time I'll try to get the masa harina because, yeah, you know, I can get closer to store-bought that way, but these are really good. So we're going to get the Frito pie. I'm sorry, I'm using a brand name. The walking tacos, I'm going to get those made. And I hope y'all come back again real soon. I love y'all. Let me know down in the comments below if you try this or if you've made your own before. And how did those turn out? Any tips, comments, I'm welcome to them. So thank y'all. You have a great day. Mountain Patriot Homestead, signing out.